I've got producer Steve, producer Tom, who are with me here in the studio with a stack of comments. This is as a result of yesterday putting up on our Facebook the comments, the text that I received from Martin in Port Carlisle. Just to remind you, the text from Martin: I would like to know, Fern, if any other listeners watch Doctor Who on Saturday night, and are they of the same mind as myself? I was there at its birth, Doctor Who, that is, and I'm sorry to say that on Saturday night I witnessed its death. The acting was poor and the storylines were very, very weak. Peter Capaldi is not the right person to play the Doctor. I'd be interested to hear from any other listeners to BBC Radio Cumbria their views on this one. Am I on my own? Facebook.com/BBC Radio Cumbria. Steve, Tom, both of you fanatical Doctor Who fans?
Yeah, big fan.
I'm renaming him Peter Capaldi though, because he's a rubbish Doctor. He's so bland.
You're not at all impressed?
No, not at all. I think he's boring. With Matt Smith, you knew where you were straight away. He burst into the screens. He was this comical, nutty professor type character. His whole series, apart from the last series, had a really strong narrative. He was this nutty guy with fish fingers and custard. He took on Amy Pond and they went on this wonderful journey together. And Peter Capaldi, there's just nothing there.
Peter Capaldi.
There's no story. There's no character. There's no nothing.
I just hope that lawyers aren't listening this morning. We've had that nutty custard-throwing professor, so arguably just trying to redress the balance here. Tom, don't we need something different?
Think we're 2 episodes in. I like Peter Capaldi. I like him as an actor, and also this is a step back to the show's roots, where he was an old grandfather type figure. I much prefer that.
Very dark. An interview that I read that Capaldi gave some months back, and he was saying even then, he said, the character that I hope to portray, darker, a little uncomfortable from time to watch. That's going to be interesting to see. Some of the text messages, some of the Facebook comments that have been coming in from listeners to BBC Radio Cumbria, having put up on our Facebook page those comments made by Martin in Port Carlisle.
Yeah, well, Lisa Wheatcroft got in touch and she says, I loved every Doctor, but Capaldi already outshone David Tennant and Matt Smith, who's been one of the best so far. Clever, dry, and a good amount of darkness, which makes even the Doctor question whether he's a good man or not. It's a refreshing change from the last few series. I think he's in the running for the best Doctor ever.
Colin Wilson says, no, at this stage in the game, I can't see any Doctor factor at all. But I suppose it's early days. We need to give him a chance.
He is great. This is Rachel Howard. Unpredictable, complex, dangerous, just what you need for a Doctor. Well, a sci-fi one anyway.
Kieran Graham says it's the current scripts that are rubbish, in addition to poor production.
Cheryl Blaylock says, love the new Doctor. Peter Capaldi, he's very funny and quirky. Love him.
Yeah, Lucy Ann Smith says, it's not that he's a bad Doctor. His acting is excellent. I'm just not convinced of the direction the show's going in.
Tony Smith, it takes time to get to know the new Doctor. You get used to the old when they have gone, so come on, give him time to prove himself.
And Sandy Salisbury says, I think the writers need to think about what viewers they're sort of aiming the show towards. The series seems to wander from suitable material for children, and then, oops, better please the parents too. Capaldi seems to be as puzzled as me. Wow.
Scriptwriters, producers, Doctor Who, they just cannot win. The argument for me has to be, because the jury is still out, whenever we see a change in the Doctor, it's like, I'm not so sure here. We all initially doubt the actor who steps into the butchers.
I loved David Tennant from day
Who.
one, and I loved Matt Smith from day one,
Really?
and I loved Christopher Eccleston from day one, and Peter Capaldi, I'm just not sure
Peter
at all.
Capaldi, stop already.
Sorry.
I'm showing my age. If we were to ask members of the team here, your all-time favourite Doctor Who, you see, for me, it's got to be Tom Baker. You see, I'm of that era.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of an old Whovian at heart, so I'd say John Pertwee.
John Pertwee, yeah? What
Matt
about
Smith.
yourself? Matt Smith for you.
Yeah,
Matt
he's
Smith.
great.
What do you make?
Season 1 and 2, Matt Smith. Season 3, Matt Smith was boring.
Suddenly everyone loves a critic. If you've got anything you'd like to add to what's already being said about the portrayal of the new Doctor Who, courtesy of Peter Capaldi.
Pants, as in underpants, rubbish.
If you'd like to text the show this morning, Steve's definitely on his high horse about this one. Texting here for BBC Radio Cumbria, George Michael there and Fast Love. So, with the new series of Doctor Who barely 2 weeks old, It seems opinion is divided when it comes to the Doctor's latest incarnation. The brilliant actor, Peter Capaldi. Text message from Martin in Port Carlisle that we read out a little earlier. It's something that we put up there on our Facebook page. Comments here from Martin. He says the acting was poor, the storyline very weak. Peter Capaldi is not the right person to play the Doctor. By the way, the debate continues to rumble over on our Facebook page. You can join in, share your comments, your views. Facebook.com/BBC Radio Cumbria. We've already heard from Rachel Howard, who thinks he's great. Unpredictable, complex, dangerous, just what you need from a Doctor. Tony Smith, also part of the conversation there on Facebook. It takes time to get to know the new Doctor. You get used to the old, then they've gone. So come on, give him time to prove himself. That'll be the actor Peter Capaldi. Also on Facebook, John Hastings here. I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, but I reckon Peter Capaldi will be operating the TARDIS for at least 3 more years. David Carruthers says, calm down. It's just a sci-fi thing. We're talking the Doctor here. Online now, Mark McManus, a Doctor Who blogger from Carlisle. Morning to you, Mark.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. Reaction from listeners to BBC Radio Cumbria as to the interpretation that is being given 2 episodes in by Peter Capaldi, the Doctor. Do you think Peter Capaldi has received negative reaction, or for you, is it still mixed, or possibly just still a case of the jury's out?
I think most of what I've seen has been really positive. I think he's been superb. He's reinvented it, as each actor should do. Each time it changes. It's big contrast from his predecessor, Matt Smith. But I think, the other person saying about him being dangerous and unpredictable, I think that's great. You don't know how he's going to react in each situation, and that's what makes it more exciting and interesting.
It's incredible, the reaction from listeners to BBC Radio Cumbria when we talk Doctor Who. Whenever there is a change to that lead character, is it always going to be the case that that there is going to be divided opinion?
I think it will. I think it's something that new viewers will come on board with every new actor, and every kind of generation has their own Doctor. The bigger the change, I think it's one of the biggest contrasts probably this time. I really like Matt Smith, but he's gone from, he was kind of quite over the top, big expansive gestures. Peter Capaldi's quite quiet. He's very still a lot of the time, more mysterious. No, it's great. I say his reactions to things are kind of unpredictable, and it gives it an edge again.
More when it comes to taking on such an iconic role, is it a little bit like James Bond? You're always going to be compared to your predecessor.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think that both things are a big part of British culture, and it's great that Doctor Who is so big now that it is talked about so much. Obviously, years gone by, it kind of dwindled away and things, but it's great that it's such big news now again.
And other actors who've taken on the role, those that have perhaps had a particularly hard time bedding in, who would you view those as being?
I think at the time, sort of Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy weren't as popular as maybe they've become subsequently. I started watching it with Sylvester McCoy, so I've always thought he's great. But there's been a bit of a revision over the last few years where his tenure's gone a bit more kindly now. You can kind of see more what he was trying to do.
Always a Tom Baker fan myself. It says something about the generations, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's still the best in my book, I think.
Yeah. Your verdict on Capaldi so far, is it just all too early to be making such decisions and highlighting such opinions?
It is. I think things will unfold as the series goes on. There was an interview with him where he said it would be about the 6th or the 7th episode before you kind of, you really see what his Doctor's going to be like. So I think it's just a case of, keep watching and see what happens.
You take my word, Mark. I'll bet my mortgage on this. At some point down the line, you and I will be back here talking as, sadly, and it will be those in their droves stepping forward saying, sadly, Peter Capaldi steps down from the role. And who is it that possibly can fill his shoes. We'll have to wait and see. Mark McManus, a Doctor Who blogger from Carlisle, sharing his thoughts, his views this morning here on BBC Radio Cumbria.